Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Global credibility expert Mitchell Levy is a 2-time TEDx speaker, an international best-selling author of over 60 books, an executive coach at Marshall Smith's 100 Coaches. After interviewing 500 thought leaders on credibility, he published a 7-country international best-selling book, delivered a powerful TEDx on humanity, created courses, and created the Credibility Nation membership community to help those live, learn, and surround themselves with others on the credibility journey. All right. Well, welcome to the show, Mitchell. And you tell us more about those interviews for credibility. It was, I know for the book it was 500, and you're up to almost 700 now, or just shy of 700.
So I just a little bit of background.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up changing I run a book publishing company. We've published over 750 books. When I started the company and moved it into a done-for-you publishing company, I realized I needed a new brand. So in the beginning of 2019, I flew to a friend's location in Miami, spent 2 days, and came up with the brand Global Credibility Expert. And 2 months later, I woke up with a Napoleon Hill moment. It was simply, if I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility, I'd have my book. Okay, so I got the book. I ended up getting a whole lot more. And the whole lot more is a now purpose that I have for the rest of my life. And that is allowing more people in the world to be credible versus the opposite. I call the opposite being dubious. So from the interview perspective, I've turned the interviews that we do now into a product. And I think it's close to 700 interviews. One of the outcomes of the interviews, one of the things that we do in the green room, is help people articulate who they serve and either the pain point they address or the pleasure point they deliver, who they serve in 10 words or less. And I call that a CPOP, the customer point of possibilities.
Right.
And I've done this CPOP work over 1,000 times. So now when you're looking at numbers, it's what do you talk about? And I would say what was interesting, Michael, 98% of the first 500 people I interviewed, and now the 680-ish people I interviewed, 98% could not articulate their CPOP. They could not articulate who they serve and what they deliver in 10 words or less. And so it's probably a core part of when I talk to somebody is I want to remember them from their CPOP.
Yeah. That's see what makes that so interesting is there was a marketing seminar that I was asked to go in and shoot, and some of these things are like they're wild and crazy things what people come up with. Like one group, they were a marketing team, and they came up with this in-flight theme, and they all dressed up like either flight attendant or the pilot and co-pilot, right? And they marched in, and it's just amazing the things that people do to get attention. And I'm assuming that when you say dubious, is all this fluff that goes around what you do as opposed to the meat and potatoes, which would be the credibility.
Um,
How
can
close?
I say that's probably that's you're probably one of the first people who said it that way. So instead of immediately saying yes, I'm going to say it's really quite possible that that's a good answer. Um, I sometimes it so the answer to your question on that it really depends, right?
Yes.
It's you credibility doesn't mean that you're always serious and you're direct and always to the point, right?
Right.
That's not what
Yeah.
credibility
Yeah.
means. um Dubious, on the other hand, are things that are, for me, I call dubious the opposite of credible, but dubious are things that you do because everyone else does them, but it's still not necessarily right.
Uh huh.
Right. And so I'm just trying to think if I'm thinking about your example. Yeah, I'd have to give some more thought to the example. It's not necessarily bad if people dressed up in a theme and they did that because that's kind of fun. I mean,
Oh
life should
no,
be fun.
it was fun. It was fun, but when everybody part of it, were competing on how out there they could go with it, which is fun. But
Ah,
okay, so
yeah.
we had one of the guests. He's worth about $500 million, and you can't work with him unless you can prove that you're going to at least flip around $10 million in gross revenue. He will not work with you. Okay, he came out in a Hawaiian shirt, sandals, white socks, and shorts on, right? Now I stretched the white socks because it's like what a fashion faux pas this guy was, right? And he said his exercise was, and is like yours, to be able to describe yourself in 2 words. And that was it's like in above and beyond everything else that anybody else did in that room, he was the one who made the room go quiet and think. So when I
Okay. So
think
what
it,
did you
that's
come,
what I think of
Michael?
dubious versus
What?
credibility.
Yeah. What did you come up with for your 2 words?
At the time, because a lot of what we were doing was around photography and filming and events, we became the smile hunters.
Interesting. I could buy that.
Because all of us as a group, as a company, we were all were either photographers or cameramen, sound guys, that sort of thing, right?
For me, it'd be interesting. I wouldn't describe myself that way, but if I had to say something, I would use the 2 words would be living credibly.
Hmm.
And the downside is, I think everyone at the moment, everyone feels they're credible. And so it's sort of like more than whom is above average, right? It's so let me give you a definition of credibility,
Okay.
right? It is the quality in which you are trusted, known, and liked. So credibility is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. And there are actually 10 skills or 10 values that are associated with those three components of trust, know, like. And you'll notice that I flipped conventional wisdom. So conventional saying is know, like, trust. And in the old days, it really was about know, like, trust,
Hmm.
right? Because it was really about, well, if you know somebody, that's all you really knew, and everything else comes afterwards. And even though it was know, like, trust, sometimes you didn't even need to like somebody. You just had to know them and maybe trust them, right? But what happens today is if somebody says to me, or let's say I go to one of my friends and I say, "Oh, you should be on Michael's show and be interviewed by him,"
Hmm.
and they can say, "Oh, send me a link." So I'll send them a link to the show or something else. That person who's looking at now, if they come through me, right, they may get more time. So let's do another thing. What if I do a post that says, I was just on Michael Clark's show and it was amazing, and I put a link to your show? If
Right.
somebody clicks on it, you have 3 seconds for them to trust you. And the trust is that you're going to actually deliver on the promise in order for them to want to spend more time in you and then get to know you better. As they're getting to know you, you're going to build upon the trust and build upon the like. And
Right.
so it really is, whether it's talking about a show or let's talk about, your avatar, let's talk about somebody who's
Mm-hmm.
running a business. If you're running a business and somebody Googles a concern, a problem they have, and they end up on your webpage or they end up on something that talks about you, there's 3 seconds for you to build enough trust for them to want to invest the time to get to know you. As they're getting to know you, they're going to want to, they're going to learn that as they get to know you more, they'll learn to trust you more and learn to like you more. And as that builds, then they'll probably reach out and talk to you or reach out and talk to somebody at the firm.
Right. That makes sense. Because our our thought processes and our information gathering is just so overwhelming that you really don't have a lot of time to really grab somebody's attention and get center stage in front of them. You don't
And
have a lot
and
of
as
time.
you said though, because I have to be careful about when we use words. You do want to grab their attention, but you don't want to grab their attention with dubious tactics,
Mm-hmm.
right? If somebody is screaming at you, like when they have their stuff in all caps, I run away.
Right.
I get 1 second. Oh, I don't like this person screaming at me. I go away, right? If I land on somebody's site and they're just continuous errors, particularly when I when I jump into another publisher's site and the copyright at the bottom of the page just is the wrong date or misformatted or there's spelling mistakes. I know it's not them. I'm like, but wait, if you're publicly showing yourself this way, it's not a good tactic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I say this to everybody is like, oh well, I'm gonna write it all and do it all myself. I was like, no, you probably don't want to do that. You probably want to actually go hire a copywriter, and they're like, well, then I had to pay money for it. Exactly. If you value yourself enough to pay money to to hire the copywriter, then if you're placing that sort of value on it, wouldn't your customers want to place that same value?
Well said.
Yeah, and I think that's what leads into where when I think about credibility is like what is it, how much value are you showing to the other person? That's what I think about with credibility. Am I
Hmm.
following on the right path with this or am I totally like because it's a word that most people don't use. You hear all this authenticity and purpose and all that kind of stuff, but you're the only one I
It's
know
an
that's using
interesting.
that word.
I like your thinking process because the concept of a CPOP,
Mm-hmm.
the concept of CPOP, the customer point of possibilities, it's to be able to articulate who you are and how you serve
Mm-hmm.
in 10 words or less. And
Yeah.
so by definition, the word value comes in there. So thank you for sharing that. And the thing, and I'll share with you mine. Mine is 4 words,
Okay.
right? And typically, Michael, what happens is it's like I said, who you serve and what do you deliver? It does not need to be like what the mistake everyone makes. Mistake everyone makes is we've been ingrained that we need to give the value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
Value proposition starts with I or we, and then it goes into we do blah and blah, deliver blah and blah, right? And And the problem is for some people, when you start with IRE and you're in front of them, they think you're selling them, and they put on their salesperson blocker and they don't hear the next 30 seconds of whatever you say anyhow. And so the way I think
Right.
about a CPOP is, what is the playground you play in?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're thinking about the playground, so I'll give you my 4 words. It's leaders living their values. And when you hear those 4 words, you can be one of 3 types of people. You could be a leader and you go, oh, wow, that's interesting. I'm not entirely sure I am. I'm not even entirely sure I know all my values, or I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
I'm leading them or living them properly. Mitchell, tell me more. Or it could be, I've got somebody in my network I might want to recommend you. Tell me more. Or it could be, I don't think I'm a leader at the moment. Doesn't mean I don't like you, or I don't care about you, but I'm not interested. So if you turn out to be in that, if the person who's listening to you or seeing you or jumping on your website, if you're in one of those first 2 categories, your tell me more should be a minute on how you address it. 30 seconds to it. What do you do to address, in this case, leaders living their values? And Michael, I'll let you know, we have 10 skills, 10 values associated with credibility. So leaders are actually living those out loud, and those skills happen to be credible. They themselves are credible.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a number of different tools, whether it's executive coaching at the high end to a boot camp that we run once a quarter that allows people to not just articulate their CPOP, but actually live it both online and offline.
Right. So how did you come around to this? What events happened in your life that brought you around to doing this work?
I've been in Silicon Valley for 35 years. I've started 20 companies here. Been happily married for 33. Have a son who's 23, actually
Mm-hmm.
about to turn 24. By the time this comes out, he'll be 24. Um, and and I've lived a good life, right? And I always thought my purpose was, create companies, make money, serve an audience. And what we end up doing is, prior to COVID, we went to Europe. We rented a house every summer for a month and invited friends and family. I mean, we've lived a good life. When I ended up changing my publishing company from we were a hybrid slash traditional company working with authors who had written their own books. And it was at the end of 2017 when I did my first TED talk. It got me thinking about the world in a different way. And I realized, I needed to create a company that would attract the audience. Same, by the way, you and I, we have overlapping audiences.
Yeah.
Attract the audience of the successful entrepreneur who wanted to use a book for credibility and had no time. And so what I ended up doing is building a writing school in 2018, and picked up 10 clients. And in 2019, that's when I realized I needed to change my brand. And that's where the brand Global Credibility Expert came from. And I was treating this exercise. By the way, I have to tell you, so I'm going to jump off into a little abyss, and then I'll come back for a second. If you're looking for incremental credibility in a way that's so powerful, if when people say to me, Mitchell, should I go and get my academic degree and get a PhD or something else? And I'm going to tell you, the PhD in the School of Hard Knocks is so much more powerful than the PhD from an academic institution. I don't want to belittle academic degrees. What I do want to say, though, is if let's say you get into a car accident, you're bleeding out. Do you want to be treated by the person who just finished med school and had all the right mechanics on it, or do you want to be treated by somebody who has treated tens of thousands of other people for the same reason and have fixed every one of them, right? I mean, the PhD in the School of Hard Knocks,
Yeah.
right? And so what happens is your CPOP evolves around that PhD in the School of Hard Knocks. Who you are evolves around that. And what I when I actually went on the when I was using the term global credibility expert, I was feeling very comfortable using that. I've been a thought leader doing thought leadership work in Silicon Valley for 30-ish years. And interviewing 500 people really brought home, like, same questions, same 5 questions, 500 people. It really brought home something super powerful.
Hmm.
So Michael, I'll give you a couple of stats that came from the interviews.
Okay.
And so one, I defined coming late to a live show. So I was doing a live show. I defined coming late is within 3 minutes. 23% of the people who I interviewed came late. 23% of 500. Now, let's make it worse. 4%. So 20 people out of 500 came after the hour to a live show. So think about this. You're being interviewed by the global credibility expert on your credibility, and you think it's credible to come late to a live show, right? And to me, surprising. But the one that bothered me the most is that 98% of everyone I interviewed, and that's the 500 now, over 1,000, 98% of people cannot articulate their CPOP, who they serve, and either the pain point or pleasure point they deliver in 10 words or less. And so there's a formula, there's a structure, there's an approach, and what I do is teachable. And if what I do is teachable, it means that we've been taught wrong. And if we've been taught wrong about the first time we meet somebody and articulating the playground we play in, if we've been taught wrong about that, what else have we been taught wrong?
Right.
And it was 11 months through the 12. It took me 12 months to interview 500. It was 11 months through it. And I realized that is now my true life purpose and what I need to do the rest of my life. And that is to help those that I encounter. If you look at my TED Talk, which was the 28th most popular in 2021, it's to help humanity be more credible, in essence, to help humanity be more humane by doing nothing more than following basic premises that mom and grandma already taught us, but we ignored when we went into business.
Hmm. You're reminding me of something I found in the writing community about we all need to go back to kindergarten.
That's a great book, by the way. Everything I learned in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Completely full of credible statements and focus and power and the types of humans we really should be.
Right. Because you think about it, that's our first community. As a young person, that's our first community introduction, and what are we learning? It's not to draw letters or numbers or anything. We're just simply learning to be around each other in a peaceful, sharing way.
We're learning to engage.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, um, so you did the interviews, you published a book, you recreated your whole business, and you actually you you coach some people through this, and so you have a process that you actually put people through to help them create their book, right?
So on the book side, so there's a couple aspects of Mitchell leaving what I do, right? So at the high end, it's one-on-one executive coaching. Mm-hmm. Typically at corporations, although we do I also work with entrepreneurs that are running companies at multiple sizes, so whether it's SMB or large. I sat on the board of a NASDAQ firm for 9 years, and so there's skill sets I bring to the table. Next level down is are things where it's one-on-one focus, where we just focus on articulating the CPOP or creating a product, a 5-minute video where people can get to trust, know, and like you in 5 minutes. Those are products that we have. Um, there's, as I mentioned before, we do a boot camp. It's called the Ultimate Credibility Boot Camp, and we do that once a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And in the boot camp, let me come back. Let me put the stake in the ground. The boot camp is to help the person in the company. So sometimes people can bring the entire company through, help them be more credible. And then the oh, I forgot about the book because you started with a book. And then there's a community called Credibility Nation.
Yeah.
We've got hundreds of members that are part of Credibility Nation. On the book side, so this is what got me started in the first place. Typically what happens is the avatar for the book, it's the highly successful executive who wants more book credibility or wants book credibility. And then you could fill in the blank, but it has no time. And so if you can imagine, I'll sit down with them. 6 months later, they're an Amazon best-selling author, and they spent 10 hours. Now, we don't make stuff up. What happens is I pull out their genius, and then I take that genius and have my writing team be able to create an asset. And typically what happens, Michael, is this is really cool, by the way. The title of the book is often their CPOP,
Right. Okay, that makes
right?
sense.
Because it's who you serve. Well, you want credibility to attract more people in who you serve and how you serve it. So it might as well be the title of your book. And in some cases, when I co-create a book with the author, we help the author get to a place where they're not now, where they need to get to in a little bit, right? There might be a couple steps they need to do to really move their business in that direction. And that's where the executive coaching comes in.
Right.
And so that's to answer your question, there's a whole series of products, but at the real basic fundamental level, once a quarter, we do a boot camp, sending your people every quarter. There's always stuff to learn. There's always more ways in which we can learn how best to show up credibly in who we are and how we serve others.
Right. Yeah. The more credible we are, the better we're, or should I say, the more people we're able to serve. Of course, there's a quality aspect to that. Also, we have to be able to do it
Yeah,
in
I'm not
in
sure.
a
I don't know
qualified way.
I don't know about quantity, but I think it. I know it comes down to great examples. I've had so many partnerships I've run over the years, and the when I have a partnership with somebody, and I've been around so many. I'm going to use the word entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
right? So people who want to be entrepreneurs but really aren't. And a lot of times, one of the characteristics of entrepreneurs is they talk about all the amazing things they're going to be doing, and the ideas are more important than the implementation. And part of what they want to do before they do business with you is get all the IP stuff structured in place and all the contracts in place. And to me, I find that such a huge waste of time. Me personally, the way I like to do it when I do partnerships is I look somebody in the eye. We agree we're going to do something. We put it out there. If we get no clients, guess what? It wasn't the right thing to do at the time. If we get clients and we deliver it the first time. And then the question becomes, how was that experience? Was that fun? And do I want to repeat it? When I was not in the room, did my partner deliver the types of things that I would have expected my partner to have done?
Right.
And after we do our first thing together and we shook hands and we everything went cleanly, and then we just, whoever takes the money splits it with the other person, then
Mm-hmm.
we create the contracts to continue.
Well, that
And
makes sense.
dubious is me spending hundreds of hours coming up with a contract that's never executed.
Yeah. 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 That see it sounds like you have this organic way of here's the flow. If it ends in something, hey, let's do that again. Well, here, why don't we just come up with it? This is what I did. This is what you did, and you put it down on paper, and so everybody knows what they're doing. And there's your contract, right?
And in the old days, that's kind of what happened, right? And we've just gotten so far away from looking somebody in the eyes, shaking their hands, and just doing what's right.
Yeah, I hear. See, I get this one when we're on the filmmaking side of things. It's like people sliding their NDAs across, and it's like, yeah, that's nice. We don't even know what we're doing yet. Why are you putting an NDA in front of me? It's a little scary, isn't it?
I'm going to change the word scary, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that it's not necessarily scary, it is how they were trained. So we're going back to dubious behavior.
Hmm.
A lot of times people are dubious not because they're malevolent or mischievous, it's because that's how they were trained, and the person that trained them were also dubious in what they said. I mean, many people say, hey, before you share any ideas with anybody else, make sure you protected yourself. So the answer is yes, sort of, right?
Yeah.
But it's not about the idea that's valuable, it's really about the execution of the idea that's valuable.
Yeah. So, getting back to the boot camp. So, at the end of the boot camp, I'm stronger in which ways? Hey,
No,
that's
thank
the
you.
point of
Thank you.
boot camp, right?
Appreciate that. So there are three things that the boot camp will do.
Yeah.
First is you're going to be able to articulate your CPOP, and that comes first. Being able to articulate in 1 second the playground you play in, who you serve, and either the pain point you address or the pleasure point you deliver. Being able to do that, it makes it so that you're memorable. It makes it that you're shareable. And the best prospects coming through the door for you are referrals from other people who remembered you and shared you. All right, so that's first.
Hmm.
Second, and this is primarily on the 2-day boot camp. We have a pre-session a couple of weeks before and a post-session for follow-up afterwards. The CPOP and a course, which we have, which is bundled in, an online course, that will help you do your CPOP ahead of time. In day one, it's focused on how do you show up credibly. So how do you show up in the room, whether you're physically in a room or virtually in a room, but you're live, you're synchronous. What do you need to do to be more credible? And they too is how do you show up asynchronously credibly? Right. And so what happens is if you were going to recommend me, Michael, right? And you just before you sent the recommendation, you looked at all my social presence and I didn't reinforce what I said, you may question whether or not you recommend me. But if you go, wait, Mitchell said his CPOP was leaders living their values. And then you went to all my social media, you looked at all my web pages, like, oh my God, he's continually reinforcing this. Yep, I need to recommend Mitchell. Right. And so the thing is, it is important that we're consistent enough so that when we recommend somebody to somebody else, we're actually passing along our trust. I
Right.
trust this person. You should spend time to get to know them.
Exactly.
Right. And what happens is if you want to make sure that that first couple seconds or first couple minutes, assuming you get past the first couple seconds, it are those in which you are then working on encouraging the person to get to know you better so they can trust you and like you. Kind of simple. Simple, not easy to execute for many people. And I'm just going to say, obviously, because we have. I'll give you something that's shocking, also shocking to me. I've done the CPOP exercise over 1,000 times.
Mhm.
98% of the people walk in, they can't articulate it. 100% of the people walk out having their CPOP. And what I could say, Michael, is spiritually, what happens when somebody gets aligned with their CPOP and they say it out loud and I feel it, the hair on my arm stands up. I mean,
Right.
I feel that level of alignment. What I'm going to say is, let's say, and we're going to assume that, let's say 100% or 99% of the people that had their CPOP really were potentially for the first time in their lives aligned, where they were able to articulate in 10 words or less what they really did, how they wanted to serve, what they were excited about. I'm going to go on to say that 90% of that audience lost it somewhere between 2 hours and 2 days. I'm sorry, 2 hours and probably 2 weeks. And why did they lose it? They lost it because they went to their network, they went to their support network, they went to their accountability partners, they went to their marketing coaches, and they said, "Oh my God, this really is me. I'm feeling really good about this." And the person looked them in the eyes and they said, without trying to be malevolent, without trying to be mischievous, they looked him in the eyes and said, yeah, that's not really you. Let me update that for you. And the person who was in alignment gave permission to somebody else to get them out of alignment.
Oh,
So the reason for the boot camp is to be surrounded by people who are also on the credibility journey together and they could see you in terms of how you want to be seen. And we need a little bit more of that continuous reinforcement from a place of true heart, from a place of truly wanting to be of service to others.
right.
And that's so what do they get from the boot camp? Articulate their CPOP and to be able to show up on and offline credibly.
That's that's a dream result. Okay, I'm going to qualify that though, because
It's a beautiful dream, by the way.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Um, but if you take a dream and you pin it to the board, and then you start making a plan around that dream, it now becomes a goal, right? In
It's
a lot of respects,
it's
there's some ins and outs, but
I'm going to say so I'll be focused. We do one of the things we do from the boot camp
hmm
is we make an offer of people joining us in the mastermind.
okay,
So let's say here's a great point. There are many people in the world who you show them a framework
hmm
and they're going to take it and they're going to run with it.
okay,
Right? I'm one of those. Show me a framework. I got it. I'm going to run with it. That's a smaller number of people in the world. There are people that you show them the framework and then they want to do it with you. They want help walking through that framework. Um, that is why we have the mastermind. Now, it doesn't have to be our mastermind. There are many other ways to accomplish this. And so that's, I'm looking for partners who want to take people as they come out of the boot camp and actually help them deploy. But for those that join our mastermind, we affectionately call that C popping. And C popping is the active alignment of who you are and what you do with your C pop.
right,
So, because what happens is the world and other people continually get in the way because we've had so many dubious teachings. It is just really hard not to get out of alignment.
yeah,
And so that's where the mastermind comes in. That's where having an accountability coach, an accountability partner can come in.
yeah. All right. So, um, we go through the boot camp. We make our credibility muscles stronger, and we cut away some of the dubious fat. Health reference, sorry.
No, I'm buying it. I'm buying it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And we come to the result of who we're supposed to be, and we're the credible person we're supposed to be, and it falls in alignment with all the authenticities and all that sort of stuff, right? And we have your mastermind and everything. So what is the result? Your student now is standing there and he's working in the community. What is that? What is your student? What is the result that you want to see with that student?
Oh, they're a more powerful human because they're standing in their own strength. They're standing in their own superpower.
Yeah.
You know those people, you see them, they glow.
Hmm.
Jill Fisher, who you've interviewed in the past, is one of those people,
Oh yeah.
right? They just glow because you see who they are, you know what they do. Um, her CPOP is also happens to be 4 words. It's lost mums reclaiming themselves.
And so you
And
just gave you the title to the podcast episode. You want to go look for in our database.
awesome.
I actually believe I used her CPOP as because it fit.
Yeah. And for me, it's you could use mine.
Yeah.
Leaders living, and I put living in all caps. Leaders living their values.
Yeah.
I think, and so what does that mean when they're done? It what a CPOP truly is it's a compass,
Hmm.
right? It's a way in which you can not just share with the world like who you are and what you do. It's also a way in which you interpret the world. Because when opportunities come your way, what's really hard for an entrepreneur is if a client comes their way and they have money in hand, and with 100% certainty that client is going to be a pain in the butt and you don't want to take them on, but you take them because they have money. But what if they're not falling within the construct of your CPOP? What if they're not really, and they're a pain in the butt? Well, it becomes easy for you to say, no, not a good fit.
Right.
So when you have that compass to look at the world, you end up making better decisions.
Yeah.
And as you're making better decisions, which are more in line with your compass, you start showing to the world better behaviors.
Hmm.
And as you're continually in that triangle or circle of looking at your compass and making better decisions and demonstrating in better behaviors, you start glowing. People see you. You're consistent on who you are and how you serve. And that's when you become the magnet for what you do.
Right. Yeah. Uh, we have to become that magnet within ourselves in order to want to attract the right people, but it's also to to ensure that we have that inner glow from within our souls, right? So
So I'm going to say that when we first got on, I
mhm.
said, "Hey, Michael, do you remember your CPOP?" And you go, sort of. Wait, it's in my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah,
So I'm going to say, when you remember your CPOP, it just pops, right?
yeah,
It's just who you are. And
yeah.
then I remember you and I had a conversation, and I don't remember exactly where I was walking around, but it was like an hour and a half. I think it might have been one of my normal walks. And you and I had a conversation, and I'm not sure if we came up with the perfect CPOP then, but as soon as you started talking this time, I have a CPOP for you that I just find to be so valuable,
Yeah.
right? And what happens is when you're thinking about the CPOP, it's who you serve. And so I asked you a very simple question, and my question to you was, if you think about your listener audience, what is the majority of the listeners? And do you
Well,
remember that response for me?
that was the female entrepreneurs.
Female entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
So, by the way, that's the start of your CPOP, right?
Right.
And then, you went all over the place, not necessarily in a bad thing, because it's the way your mind works, of the
Mhm.
different things that you deliver. But what you could either say, what is the pain point they want, or in this particular case, what is the pleasure point
Right.
that they would like to have? And it just popped. There are 3 more words. So I think your CPOP is 5 words.
Right.
And I think and because when I look at the tagline on your LinkedIn profile, I don't mind that at all. It's actually great, but it's more of a tagline.
Mm-hmm.
Your CPOP, female entrepreneurs wanting engaging thoughts,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think, I'll be truthful, I don't remember landing on that because it wasn't as powerful as it feels to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's your compass for everything you do, it'll be easy when you're looking at guests. It'll be easy to know who to pick on, who not to pick on. When you look at other opportunities that might be revenue producing or just content producing, it'll be easy to know, hey, is it fitting my audience? Is it who my audience
Yeah.
serves? Right? If you, I think one of the things we're talking about is doing polls. You know, it you well, where does your audience hang out, and how do you actually reach out to them?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to me. Sometimes it's obvious when you talk to somebody. When I did work with Jill, her CPOP was on her sleeve. I mean, she said it within the first 10 seconds, even though she'd been looking for it for 10 years, 12 years,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
sometimes it's on people's sleeves, and then sometimes it's really hard to unravel
Yeah.
because there's so much marketing cookie cutter stuff that we've got to cut through.
Yeah. And I will admit that that my corporate life before being an entrepreneur, it was full of all that dubious stuff that you know it had to fall in within a certain cookie cutter, or else no, we have to toss that away and start all over again, sort of thing. And then uh, I used to train for a national retailer. I used to train the sales people and the selling managers and everything. And what do we have, right? So.
Hey, I wonder if you could do a favor for me. I just put it back in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did is I put the word engaging in all
Right.
caps. And the reason I did that is typically when you say it, and I'd like you to say it. I want to say, if you don't mind, I'd like to say what's your CPOP. And I'd
Okay.
like you to say it. When you say it, I'd like you to actually really emphasize the word engaging, because in all of the conversations I had with you, that's why your listeners are going to listen.
That is why they listen. So I'll say it right now. Okay,
Yeah, please.
female entrepreneurs wanting engaging thought.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
That's oh
I mean,
I,
and it's sometimes
yeah.
so many people, because I have some of my listeners I have a closer connection to than others via social media. And um, right now, with some of the things that are happening in our world, um, that they are so engaged with it, and so that engaging is really there. And it's amazing to see some of the things that they said. Like I said, one person in the writing community, she mentioned the going back to kindergarten, the the book we brought up earlier. Um, Everything I knew, I learned in kindergarten, or whatever the book was. And others are are saying, they're just saying things that want to promote and engage people in the thoughts of, we need to be more loving in our communities, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
um, so going back to the word credibility, when we've gone through your boot camp, and we've worked with you, and we've all done all this work together. One thing that came to me as we were talking about all that with credibility is, our businesses need an audience. And that credibility is actually going to attract that audience, because if you know what you're doing and it's obvious that you're living what you say you're going to do, that people will gather around. Pretty much?
C. C. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Perfect. Well said.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
do you mind? I just want to wrap up your CPOP. And this is for somebody who's listening, right? If you're listening, because it's 5 words: female entrepreneurs wanting engaging thought. All right. So now let me give you a tactic. When you start sharing that with other people, there's going to be those people who want to change those words. Right. And what you, because, let's not make it thought. Let's make it conversations that inspire actions, or, right. They're going to want to add more to it. Right.
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting, what I want you to do is I want you to thank them for their ideas and just start keeping a tally of how many people wanted to change you. Right? They're not really necessarily trying to change you, but I think if this really is you, you don't need anything more. The tell me more is going to articulate in more detail what you do and how you go about doing it. But when you said what you said, the hair on my arm stood up, a chill went down my body because it felt so comfortable.
Yeah. It's amazing. The right words have an empowering effect.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, and that's what you want to do for everybody, is help them find the right empowerments, right?
So if it's me, yes, I would like everyone to be playing by the credibility playbook. And the playbook is think about a triangle. It's very simple. Having your CPOP, so you know, and by the way, if you hadn't realized this yet, one of the values of credibility is being a servant leader. So having your CPOP, so you know how you are of service, using that as a compass so you make better decisions. And as you're making better decisions, you're demonstrating better behavior. That triangle, that, whether you call it a triangle or a circle, that circular motion of living out loud, but living credibly out loud, because you're of service to others, allows you to become the magnet for who you are. And the more of us in the planet that can do that, the better we are, the more humane we will be to each other. And by the way, because we're magnet and we attract our clients, we're also making money. So this is not a do good for the planet by itself. It's do good while you're making money, because that is the parameter we use to judge success. But a little bit more money helps you do a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're running out of time, so we're going to need to wrap everything up. And what are the best ways to get a hold of you? I want to work with Mitchell.
So definitely check out the Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp. And if you just Google the Ultimate or Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp, or go to ultimatecredibilitybootcamp.com, you'll see us. Join us there. If you could just go to my website, I'm on all social media. Most of the time I'm spending on LinkedIn. But the URL, mitchelllevy.com, it will also point to the Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp, but it also points to my calendar. So if you want to make time on my calendar, you can do that directly by going to mitchelllevy.com and making time.
Awesome. Hey, Mitchell, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Michael, I love your point of view, your questions and your analogies, and it's giving me food for thought too. And so I appreciate this two-way conversation.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and we'll see you next time. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.